Good morning. Welcome to Super Dads. I'm Brad Moser, registered psychologist, family counselor. I work at Family Center. We are live on JessFM, on JessFM.ca. Today, within the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about the stress of parenting. Is parenting stressful? Hell yeah. Take a look at the hair on my head. I don't have very much. I had much more before I had kids. I remember having showers and putting shampoo on my hair, feeling, oh man, my forehead feels so big. My head, wow, I'm getting less and less hair. I see hair clogged in the drain when I'm taking a shower. It's not uncommon for moms and dads to lose hair, to get gray hair, to gain weight from having kids. Parenting can be stressful in so many different levels. Emotionally, it tests out our emotions. We feel anger, frustration, annoyed, disappointed, fear. We feel like a failure sometimes. We feel anxiety. We feel helpless. All range of emotions when it comes to having kids. Physically, our energy is sure tested when we have kids. We go through physical and emotional exhaustion, loss of sleep, trying to keep up with our kids' energy levels. It can be really tough. And also mentally, we have maybe some beliefs or expectations about parenting, about families before we have kids. And that's really tested out when we actually have them, right? We dream that, oh, our kids are going to behave, they're going to listen to us, they're going to do as we say. They're going to be obedient, they're going to be hockey kids, they're going to play in the NHL, they're going to do well in their career, they're going to get straight A's in school. When in reality, they're their own kids, and they're not going to do what you want them to do, they're going to do what they want to do. And that can be really stressful. Stress happens right from pregnancy until their whole lives. So as newborns, you're learning a lot about your new baby, especially your first kid, right? You're learning about what their needs are, how to meet their needs, how to change them, how to feed them, how to burp them. It's a big learning curve. And you're learning on the spot, even if you've had experience with kids before, like with nieces or nephews or whatnot, you're still learning on the spot. And it can be very stressful because this new thing that is exciting and doesn't always want to do what you want it to do. And it really tests your frustration and anger levels. As it gets older into the ones, the twos, the threes, the fours, they get into that terrible two kind of stage where they want to test the boundaries. They start to learn how to walk. They start to learn how to talk. So they're going to run away from you. They're going to talk back to you. There's a lot of times where your stress level and your frustration level is tested. As they get into early childhood and they start to go into school, there's a lot of stress that happens there with them going through changes in their social development. In their academic success, there's stress about how well they're going to perform or how well they do. Are they getting in trouble? Are they attending okay at school? Are they listening okay? Are they, worrying about their health? There's a lot of steps that happen. As they get into the preteen age, there's a lot of changes that go on for them, whether they start puberty and transitioning from childhood into adulthood can be really tough. They start to really in the preteen age, they start to really internalize their emotions. So rather than expressing their emotions and talking about them, they push them down inside, and it comes out in different ways, like stomach aches and headaches. They start acting out a lot. In the teenage years, I'm not quite there at that place, but I've heard that's like hell. There's a roller coaster of emotions they're going through, and hormones, and going through puberty, and going through changes with friends. As teenagers, they need to learn how to find their identity as people. They need to learn how to separate from their parents. And that can be really hard for us as parents because we believe that we know what's best for them, but they need to test it out themselves. And that can be really hard for us to let go of them, especially when they get into young adulthood and they start to practice relationships and try to find their sense of where they are in the world and who they want to be with. That can be really stressful for us. And then as they grow older too, as they get into adulthood, into middle adulthood, and there's a lot of concerns we might have because we think we know the best way, and they're finding their own way. So stress throughout the whole lifespan. Some of you may have seen the movie Incredibles 2. It came out last year, Disney Pixar. I thought it was a great movie. The only problem I had with it is I didn't quite get the whole stress that Mr. Incredible was going through. So what happens in Incredibles 1 is Mr. Incredible, there's a family with Mr. Incredible, Elastigirl, Violet, which is a teenage girl, there's Dash, I think he's like in his pre-teenage, and then there's Jack Jack the baby. So Incredibles 1, Mr. Incredible goes out into the workforce, which is being a superhero and solving crime, and fighting the bad guys, whereas Mom stays at home and she looks after the kids. In Incredibles 2, the roles are reversed. So Mom goes out and she does all the crime saving stuff, the superhero stuff, and Dad stays at home with the kids. What you see in that movie, Incredibles 2, is Dad is there, he's trying to do the best he can with raising the kids, and he's faced with the stress of parenting by himself because Elastigirl is doing her crime fighting, but she has to do it in secret. So she has to stay in hotels so her identity isn't found. So he's there all by himself trying to figure this out, and he goes through a lot of stress. He goes through a lot of exhaustion. And you see him interacting with the baby, the 10-year-old Dash. You see him interacting with his teenager Violet. And there is definitely stress there, normal parenting stress, but then there's also the superhero kind of stress because Jack Jack, he starts to learn that Jack Jack actually has superpowers, like way more superpowers than anybody else, and that's really stressful for him. Well, it's exciting, but it's also stressful to try to keep tabs on him. But when it came to the normal parenting stress that Mr. Incredible is going through, and he's a superhero, I didn't quite get it because he was exhausted. He's physically stressed out and emotionally. But his baby, Jack Jack, I didn't really see a lot of stress there that a normal parent faces. Because, sure, he pooped his diaper once in the movie. He was crawling around doing his own thing. But we didn't see any of him changing his diaper. We didn't see him change his diaper and him peeing on him. We didn't see him projectile vomiting. We didn't see him having a big diarrhea poop that goes out through the diaper and onto the clothes. We don't see him pooping into the car seat. We don't see him trying to change the baby while he's peeing and puking, and the dog is peeing on there's no dog in the movie, but there's no dog peeing on the floor while that's happening, and the older child bugging the parent to do something. Like, I didn't really get the stress that he was going through. I remember I think the first day when he was looking after the kids by himself, he was reading a book to Jack Jack to try to get him to bed, and Jack Jack is kind of getting close to sleep, and the dad falls asleep. He's sleeping while he's reading to him, and Jack Jack smacks him in the head to wake him up so he can keep reading him. But I mean, that stress, like, what happened to the kid who's not sitting there reading? He's getting up, he's causing mischief, he's getting into trouble, he's doing some scary things while the dad's sleeping. I mean, the baby is actually behaving pretty good, it seemed like. So I didn't quite get that. And then I don't have a child who's a teenager yet, so I don't really quite get that stress. I get an idea of what that's like. But the teenager is having some troubles with a boyfriend, and disappointment with the boyfriend and whatnot, and frustration. And but you're not seeing the teenage girl go out with her friends and drinking, using drugs, and not calling dad and not coming home. with the preteen or Dash. He has problems with his math homework, and so the dad's trying to figure out how to do this math because it's changed since he was in math at that grade. But it's not showing that the Dash, at least Dash is doing homework. At least he wants to do homework. He's not disobeying. He's not doing whatever he wants. He's not watching the iPhone or iPad all day long. So it was a great show, but I didn't quite get the level of the stress, and I would have liked to seen that because I think I would have connected better with Mr. Incredible as a dad to see him go through the normal kind of parenting stress. That's my take. Anyway, everybody has their own opinion. Today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to look at what stress looks like in parenting with a model that is called, it goes with red-blue energy. It's a red-blue energy model. And I learned this model from a colleague and previous professor, Dr. Dawn McBride. So she's an associate professor at the University of Lethbridge in counselor education. She's also a registered psychologist in private practice. I've learned a lot from her, but this is a really cool model that I learned from her, and it's how our nervous system works and how our body responds to stress. Okay? And so what we're going to do is I'm first going to explain red energy. And again, here we are live JessFM on jessfm.ca. On Facebook, we're available on JessFM, and also on the Family Center Facebook page, which is Family Center, and then you look into the Super Dad events page. On Instagram, we're available on JessFM YQL, and then also hashtag SuperDadsYQL. Start with red energy. So red energy, it's like this. Okay. Red energy is stress, it's anxiety, it's frustration, it's anger. Okay, these are emotions that rev us up. They get our body worked up and they get us ready for action. They get us ready for fight or flight. Okay, so we're doing okay. Things are, throughout the day we go through kind of just moderate highs and lows. Like you're happy that you got to work on time, but it's stressful because somebody is cutting you off on the way home from work. Like those kind of things with our energy level goes up and down. When we get triggered by something that somebody else does or says, we can go into the red energy, right, where we're building up frustration, anxiety, anger. And when we get to the top of this red energy, or the high red energy, it can keep up building up. And this can happen really quick. We go into what's called fight or flight. Okay, so fight or flight is something that we've evolved from our ancestors. So cavemen millions of years ago, when they were faced with a real threat, like having to fight a bear, they could either, they got into the red energy, they got to the top of that red energy, and they could either fight that bear or they could flight, they could run away. So we've still evolved that. It's in our body. We're programmed for this. When we get to fight or flight, fight is we can either fight somebody, like physically hurt them, we can yell at them, we can break something else, we could put a bunch of hole in the wall, we could slam a door, many different things. The flight is we could run away. Okay, we can do both. We can do fight and then flight. So flight, running away, yeah, it's pretty good because at least you're getting yourself out of the situation, but unfortunately what can happen with flight is we just kind of get out of there and other people might be concerned and worried about what we're doing. So that's fight or flight and the red energy. The opposing energy is blue energy. Okay, so blue energy is calming, it's relaxing, it's feeling comfortable, it's feeling warm and safe. This is the energy we get when we're having a hot bath, when we're getting a massage. This is the energy that kind of goes down, right? So it's kind of like relaxing, we're feeling good, we're feeling content. Okay, this is a good energy. But what can happen though is if we go too much into the blue energy, we go into deep blue energy, the deep blue. Okay? This is like scuba diving. So if anybody's been scuba diving, if you go really deep into the water, you can get so deep in the blue, in the water, you don't really know which way is up and which way is down. That's kind of like the deep blue energy. This can be depressed, it can be sad, it can be unmotivated, it could be sick, it could be tired, exhausted, and you're kind of just into yourself. You're not really engaging in other people. You're kind of just, all your kind of senses are kind of deployed, and you're just kind of not really, just kind of lifeless in a way. So that's the deep blue. Now, what can happen with the blue energy? And this is, sorry, the deep blue energy. Another word for it is freeze. Okay, so what freeze is, let's say we get triggered, and we go into the red energy. We go too high into the red energy. Now we can go into fight or flight, or we can go, instead of fight or flight, we could go right back down into the freeze. Okay, so freeze is where we're numb, we're not connected to the world, we're kind of just in our own zone, we're just phasing out, and we're just kind of blocking people out. We're actually, in this place, we're actually really emotionally overwhelmed. We just don't know how to cope with it, so we're just going into protection mode, and that's freeze. Another word for this is stonewalling, and this comes from John and Julie Gottman. They've done lots of research on couples. They've done over 40 years of research on thousands of couples. They found the patterns in relationships that most predict relationship breakdown, so relationships breaking up, going through separation, divorce, and they call them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So 4 patterns in relationships that predict that they probably will eventually break up. One of those 4 horsemen is called stonewalling. And stonewalling is this whole freeze response. It's where the person just is so overwhelmed with the conflict in the marriage or relationship that they kind of just shut down and they become numb. Now guys, the unfortunate news about this, because according to the research of the Gottmans, is that men are more likely to practice stonewalling. So this can, when men do this, and any partner does this in a relationship, they go into the stonewalling, it's really hard for the other partner because they want to talk about it. They want to try to resolve the problem. They want to, they want to fix it, but the other partner is just kind of not engaging. They're just kind of in their own stuff, right? And the other partner gets really frustrated because it's like, it seems like they don't care, but in reality, they do care. They're just so overwhelmed with emotion that they're just kind of shutting down. So when you're in that stage there, that stonewalling or the freeze stage, the best thing to do, if you notice yourself in there, is to try to engage in the environment, to kind of try to self-soothe yourself, to cope with those emotions so that you can engage with what's going on. And we're going to go over some tools later on some blue energy activities. I'm going to use an example just to put this into perspective of how parents can go through the red and blue energy. So let's say that our 5-year-old is using a lot of screen time. He's on his tablet, and we want to tell him to get off his tablet because it's too much. We don't want it to fry his brain or whatever. So we go up to our 5-year-old and, okay, Jimmy, screen time's up. Time to put away the tablet. No, I don't want to put away my tablet. No. Okay, so we start to get triggered, right? So we go into that red energy a little bit, and we're starting to notice ourselves getting frustrated, and we put our foot down a little bit. We say, no, it's time to put the tablet away. You've had enough time. It's done, and you take it away. No, it starts freaking out, yelling, screaming at you, swearing at you maybe, calls you the worst parent ever, wants to leave, all this kind of stuff. And you're getting worked up, right, hearing this stuff, and the response. And so you might go into the fight or flight. You might yell at the child. You might swear at the child. You might very forcefully pick them up and take them to the room. You tell them you have to go into timeout. You stay in there for the rest of the day, or you're grounded. You might go into flight. You might leave the room. You might punch the wall. You might slam the door. You might jump into the car and get away. Okay. Now, what happens after that, and I didn't explain this before, but when you go into that fight or flight, and as you're working yourself up with the red energy, your body is getting ready for fight or flight, so the whole body gets ready for it, okay? So your hormones kick in. Your breathing picks up really fast, okay? You're breathing really quickly. Your blood pressure is going higher. The whole body kind of gets ready for that. It's like adrenaline. It's the body's getting ready to fight something or to run away, right? So it's that biological response. Now this is good energy. So if the way this works well is if you're playing sports or you're working out or you're going for a run, you want red energy. It gives you energy. It can also help when you're playing with kids and you're doing something physical with them. It can do well in certain things, like if you're playing music in front of people or you're giving a speech or something. And red energy can be hard because it can make you nervous and whatnot, but it can also give you energy that you can do well. You can use that energy in a good way. But if it comes out in the wrong way, and we don't want it to go that way, if we don't want it to go in that direction, we want to go into fight or flight, there's things we can do to calm down. But anyway, when we get to that fight or flight, okay, so we do something, that's kind of like the peak, that's the climax of our red energy. Then we start to slowly, okay, this is very fast. The going from trigger to fight or flight can happen within a second or half a second. It's like really quick because every system of your body is getting ready for that. It's getting hyped up. So it's at the peak. You do the fight or flight. Then it's very slow decline. Okay, your body restores itself after that. So you're very slowly, and this is actually blue energy. It's not really intentional blue energy. Your body just kind of naturally does this, but the breathing slows down, the heart rate slows down, the blood pressure slows down, the hormones slow down. But it's one at a time. It's not all at once. It's one system slows down at a time. That's why it is so slow to get back to normal. There's research that shows that it can be it can be up to an hour and a half of how slow that is. Like, it's a really slow process. But what happens is we actually go slowly decline. Okay, and then we actually go below normal. We actually can go into a depression. Okay, that's where we can go back into the deep blue energy. So very slowly into the deep blue. That's why we might feel sad, we might feel regretful what we did, that sort of thing. Now, the other way this can happen is, say we ask Jimmy to put the tablet away. He says no. He starts fighting, and you take it away. You're getting triggered, right? You're going into the red energy. But instead of fight or flight, you choose freeze. Or it's not you choosing; it's actually your body. So your body goes into freeze. Okay, so goes right from this high point right down into freeze. The protection mode. Okay, so we might just might leave the room a little bit. We might go into a corner or somewhere, and we might just go into freeze. And I really like the movie I Am Sam with Michelle Pfeiffer. And I remember one part of the movie where she's a lawyer who's got lots of red energy going on and throughout the whole movie. But I remember one part of the movie, she was at her house, and I think she had Sam over and her kid over there, and she's going through a lot of stress in her house. And I think what she does, it seems like she goes into freeze because she goes into the pantry, I think, and she just stands there, like huddled over, and she grabs some marshmallows and just stuffs her face with marshmallows. It's kind of like this freezing, like, just get me out of here, just help me escape from there. That's an example of that. So that's red and blue energy, and that's how it attacks our body, it affects our body. Let's talk a little bit about what to do differently, right? We know how it affects our body. We know how parenting can be stressful. So this is all about emotional regulation, how we regulate our nervous system. You might hear about that. It's kind of a hot word used nowadays. Instead of anger management, the more common word or phrase is emotional regulation. It's about being aware of how our emotions are happening, how our body is going, the nervous system is going into the fight or flight or the freeze, and how we can respond to our body in positive, healthy ways, so that we can regulate those emotions, and we don't have to go into those high red places or the fight or flight. That if we go too much into the blue, we can do things to bring us up a little bit as well. Okay, so it is our job as ourselves to regulate our own emotions, right? So it's not anybody else's job. For our children, definitely as parents, we do really need to regulate our own emotions, right? As a dad, as a mom, as a spouse, within all of our relationships, we do need to regulate our emotions, but especially with kids, because we need to be the positive role model. We need to be able to regulate our own emotions so that we can help children regulate their emotions, right? Because they're not quite at the age where their brain is fully developed, so they can't quite do that on their own, so that's where they need parents to help them out. It's right around early 20s when our brains are fully developed and the frontal lobe of our brain is fully developed, and that the frontal lobe is where we can make decision making, we can make judgments and things like that. So the children's frontal lobe of their brain isn't fully developed, so they need our help to help them with that regulation. And so to do that, obviously we need to be regulated. And blaming other people for our emotions doesn't work, right? Because you hear it a lot that you're pissing me off, or you're making me mad, or you're doing this and that's why I'm pissed off, right? I'm a couples counselor. I'm also a family counselor, individual and youth counselor, and so I hear that a lot when partners are talking to each other, for example, in a couple counseling situation, that they blame their partner for how they feel. Now, it doesn't work because actually they're not responsible for how you feel. You're responsible. Other people can do things to trigger your emotions and to trigger your red energy, but really it's up to us as a person, individual, to be aware of how that's affecting our body and what we need to do to get ourselves back into a good place. Right? So nobody can do that for us. We need to do it ourselves, and we can't change other people. We can only change ourselves. So we need to know our body. We need to know how our nervous system responds to stress, and we need to respond accordingly in healthy ways. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. The blue energy activities can be really helpful. The blue energy activities are things that give us a sense of calm, a sense of peace within ourselves, a sense of restfulness. And these are good activities that we can do these proactively or preventatively. We don't have to do them when we're stressed. We can do them anytime, just to feel at a sense of coolness, right? So these are things like hot baths, music, listening to relaxing music, meditation, mindfulness meditation, and that's something that I really enjoy. I do it myself. There's a lot of different apps for meditation and for anxiety nowadays. One of the ones that I really enjoyed using is Headspace, and you can use up to, I think, 10 sessions for free, and then after that they require a fee. Some of these apps are free, and some of them you do have to pay a little bit, but Headspace is really good because it gives you a daily 10-minute meditation that you listen to on your phone, and it kind of guides you through how to meditate. So meditation is basically being aware. Mindfulness meditation is about being aware of what's going on right now. So inside your body, feeling the sensations in your body, whether they're positive, negative, or neutral. It's about feeling sensations outside your body, so like on your skin, air pressure, touch, that kind of thing. It's also about being aware of your senses, so what you see, what you're hearing, again, the feel, the touch, what you're smelling, sometimes what you're tasting. There's a really cool mindfulness meditation exercise called eating a raisin, and it's actually taking a raisin and it's putting it in the palm of your hand, feeling it on your hand, taking it up to your face, smelling it, trying to listen to the raisin, eventually putting it into your mouth, eating it very slowly, like within a minute or so, and just really tasting the flavors and everything to do with the raisin. It's a really cool mindfulness practice. It's also being aware of your thought patterns, your thoughts, the things you're saying to yourself, right? Those automatic thoughts that keep coming up in your mind, in your head. It's also being aware of your emotions, your emotional state at any time. So doing this mindfulness practice can really help you feel calm, help you feel in a collected state. So I find it really helpful when sometimes it's hard for me to sleep. Like I'll wake up at like 3 in the morning, either on my own or one of the kids has a bleeding nose or something, and I'm trying to help him with that, and then it's hard to get back to sleep because I have lots of thoughts going on. I'm in the red energy, right? So it's hard with all these thoughts going on about what to do tomorrow, about things that are going on, stressful things, and so I'm in that red energy trying to sleep, and that's really hard, right? Because sleeping is a blue energy activity. So I find just turning on, or going onto YouTube, or going onto the Headspace app or another app, and just looking up on YouTube 10-minute body scan mindfulness meditation. Just listening to that, doing as a guided meditation, doing as they say, I find that really helpful. It gets me into that blue energy, and then I'm much more likely to sleep within a few minutes after that. Body scan is a type of meditation where you're guided through focusing from the top of your head right down to the tips of your toes, going slowly through your body and just scanning the inside of your body on sensations you feel throughout your body. So I find it really helpful. Other blue energy activities is a really good one, and it's similar to meditation. It's a grounding activity that you can do at any time. It's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I learned this one also from Don McBride, as I mentioned before. With 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, wherever you are, all you got to do, and you can do this right now while you're listening to me or watching me, is first of all be aware of 5 things that you see. Okay, so I see the camera right now. I see this other camera. I see the TV over there. I look at myself in the camera and I see a green screen behind me. I know it's not green in reality, but that's what it looks like to me. I see the light. I see the outside, the window. That's 5 things. And then I focus on 5 things that I hear. So I hear cars driving by, I hear myself talking, I hear the clicking of the clock, I hear some signals on the computers. That wasn't quite 5, but you go to 5. Hearing's a little bit harder than seeing. And then the last one is 5 things you sense. So these are things you sense within your body or outside of your body, like on your skin. So I notice my bum on the seat, I notice my feet crossed in front of me over here, I notice I can feel my hands against my legs, I can feel my heartbeat right now, and I can kind of sense my eyes moving around. So 5 things. And then, so that's 5 things you see, 5 things you hear, 5 things you sense, and then you go to 4. 4 things you see, 4 things you hear, 4 things you sense, and then 3. 3 things you hear, 3 things you see, 3 things you hear, 3 things you sense. And you can repeat things too. If you said, like I said, I saw the camera, I could say that again when I'm down to 4 or 3. And then 2 things you see, 2 things you hear, 2 things you sense, and then 1. And then it only takes about 5 minutes, but from the time you go, or even less than 5 minutes, by the time you go from 5 to 1, you'll notice that you're more centered, you're more grounded, you're less in your thoughts, you're less in the red energy. It's a really cool activity. That works really well, that strategy, for if you find that you're in that freeze response, you're in the stonewalling, that really helps you kind of engage in the environment and get yourself out of that place. Red energy activities. So yes, sometimes we do need the red energy. If we're in that freeze response, it's hard for us to get out of bed, we don't feel motivated, we feel really depressed. We can do things like listening to music that pumps us up, right? Like CNC Music Factory or Too Unlimited. You can tell I'm from the 90s. You can do things like self-reminders or positive self-talk that gets you pumped up, like just do it, or it's time to get into action, or things like that, right? Whatever you kind of have used before, that's a mantra that helps you kind of tell yourself to get going. Calling or talking to a friend can help sometimes, right? To kind of remind you of the important things in life and stuff like that, and that it's important to keep going. I've used this, I learned this a long time ago, and I found it still pretty helpful, from actually Tony Robbins. This is many years ago when I used to really be into Tony Robbins. It's a strategy where I call it, and it's not, this isn't what it's called, but it's like morning motivation boosting questions. So these are questions that you can write on your nightstand on a card. And then as soon as you wake up, you pick up this card, you ask yourself these questions, and your brain automatically comes up with answers. And it gets you kind of pumped up, and it gets you going for the day. So these questions can be things like, what two things am I especially grateful for? What two things am I especially proud of? What two things am I excited about today? What two relationships do I feel a strong bond with right now? So those kind of questions can kind of get you going and get your thoughts going. You know, I feel really connected with this person, and we feel really excited about the weekend, things like that. There's other ones as well, but those are just some ideas of blue and red energy activities. A question for you guys is, what blue energy activities do you do? Or which ones could you use more of? If you notice yourself being triggered, if you notice that you have too much red energy, too much stress, too much anxiety right now, or just blue energy activities to keep yourself in a good place. Also, what are your red energy activities? What things do you do to pump yourself up or to get yourself going if you feel lazy or if you just don't feel like you want to get up? Sorry, lazy isn't a really good word. It's kind of a label. I mean unmotivated. So we talked about the red and blue energy. We talked about what we can do to kind of help regulate our emotions. I also want to tie this in with parenting, because when we take on the role of parents, we probably didn't know this when we actually signed up for it. We thought about having kids. It really tests our regulation. It tests our nervous system. And I was listening to a podcast just this week, and I got a really cool quote. And her name is Dr. Helena Vissing. Dr. Helena Vissing. And the quote is that parenting is a nervous system upgrade. It's an expansion system. It's where we have our nervous system, we have kids, and it really tested us out. It really helps us to learn how to be better at regulating our emotions, because it's really stressful, right? Any kind of stressful major life activity you take on can really test out your nervous system. And that's a positive way to look at it, right? Because we could look at it in a negative way. We could say, sure, I was fine before I had kids, now I'm just a wreck, right? And I mean, if we keep believing that I'm just a wreck now, and the kids, wreck my emotional whatever, do they really piss me off? If you really hold on to that, I mean, yeah, you're going to feel frustrated, you're going to feel helpless. But if you try to take on a more positive, a more also accurate belief that this is going to help me grow as a person, that's a really good way of looking at it. So a lot of these, the ways that we regulate our own emotions, and we regulate our nervous system, we experience fight, flight, or freeze. A lot of those ways that we experience those now is how we learned how to do it when we were children. Okay, so what we learned as kids growing up is how we often do it by default. So as an example, as a child, I used a lot of fight. When I got into the red energy, I would fight a lot. Okay, so I would, my little brother, Taylor, I would hit him. I would, many different ways. I'd punch him, I'd kick him, I'd slap him, I'd drag him down the stairs. I mean, I'm kind of laughing when I think about it, but I hope he forgives me for all that. But I feel really bad saying that I did all those things to him. But that's kind of what I learned myself, and it wasn't a good learning, but that's what I did. That's how I dealt with my anger, my anxiety, my stress, my fears, as I would take it out on him. The other thing I did, the other fight activity I did, was I would hit things. I would hit my door in my bedroom. I'd hit the walls. I'd put holes in the walls. I'd put holes in doors. And I feel really bad for my parents for having to fix the walls and fix the doors, and all the worry that they had to go through, all the red energy, because they weren't sure what was wrong with this kid, and they're probably worried about me. The good thing is I turned out pretty good. But that was up to me. That was my job, because we carry that with us, right? So as an adult, and especially as a parent, and having my patience tested out by being a parent, I automatically, by default, went into the fight mode a lot. And I didn't punch them. thank goodness. I didn't punch walls or anything like that, but I could definitely see the same kind of pattern that I would go into fight. And it was up to me to try to learn that pattern, try to learn what's going on, and then learn how to implement some blue energy activities to calm myself, or to do other things like set boundaries, to communicate what I need, to use I statements, to do some deep breathing, to kind of try to do things that help me kind of stay in a good place. And that when I am triggered, what are the things that I can do to try to keep me in a good place so that I'm not fighting or flighting, basically. So it's up to us to learn how our body is affected by stress and what we need to do to keep ourselves in a good regulated state. So the stress of parenting, a big topic, only a short amount of time to talk about it. We only skimmed on the surface, so if you do have any questions, concerns, my email address is on the poster of the show. We also have, as I mentioned, on JessFM, are available on Facebook, JessFM, and on Family Center, Facebook, Super Dad's Event page, and on Instagram, JessFMYQL, and hashtag SuperDadsYQL. It was great seeing you guys again, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Take care.